Welcome to Florida Focus, a college football podcast. You have a lifetime Florida State Seminole, that's me, Brandon, and a lifetime Florida Gator fan, that's my co-host, Chris. We're putting aside our differences to bring you the fantastic world of college football throughout the Sunshine State. Today we have a very special guest on the show. His name is Chuck Lovitt from the Recruiting Blueprint podcast. And Chris, we've been talking about how we would give our fans a better picture of what the recruiting process looks like for parents and for athletes. So given all that, how are you feeling about today's show?
I'm real good. I feel real good about it. Recruiting is one of those things that I really haven't followed too much. Some years I follow it more than others, just depending on what's going on with me, and with the Gators and who they're looking at. But overall, I'm kind of new to this whole recruiting thing, and I'm realizing how deep it goes, and it's kind of scary.
Yeah, that's probably a good explanation for it. And we want to make sure we're giving constant content to our fans throughout the year, and this is certainly something that takes up a big portion of it. So, Chuck, we want to thank you for coming on the show today.
I appreciate you having me.
All right. Well, just to give our fans a little bit of history on Chuck, and so they know kind of why we brought him on today, so he can kind of educate us. He is with Play Up Athletics. He started the Recruiting Blueprint podcast almost a year ago now, and has been involved with the recruiting process for over 10 years now. Chuck has a history of law enforcement. He is a parent of a Division II athlete. He has a very strong leadership background and was a volunteer recruiting coordinator for many years before he started the business. So what was, if you could let us know, Chuck, what was your motivation for getting the business started, and how did all of your background play into that decision?
Well, the background actually played into it quite a bit. It started because my daughter's softball coaches were looking for a resource to tap into to try and help those girls get recruited to play in college. And they were coming up empty. They wanted to coach. That's what they knew. They wanted to stay doing that. But they wanted somebody to devote some time to look into it. And so they asked me to do that. And given the background that I had, I was able to kind of formulate a plan for these softball players to kind of take it from A to Z to get recruited. And that's kind of how it started. People started seeing what we were doing. We ended up getting every one of those girls that wanted to go to college to play went to college to play. And so in my neck of the woods, that's a little unheard of.
Wow.
Where you guys are from, probably not. But where I'm from, having a full team recruited like that is a little rare. And so I just started getting more inquiries, more interest. And I really started to see that there's a need for this. There are some resources out there, no doubt about it, but some of them are extremely old and outdated. Some of them are just very expensive and really not worth it, and some are just dads that have been through it before. And I think you and I have talked once before, and my belief is the learning is in the struggle. And we certainly struggled with that team, going down wrong roads and wishing we'd done things differently. And we just learned a lot. We learned a great deal from getting one full team recruited, and was able really to parlay that into helping a lot more.
Well, that's great insight. I think as parents, Chris and I both agree, sometimes you start things for your children, it just kind of becomes who you are after a while. Right, Chris?
Yeah, and little things that you don't think are going to be a passion becomes a passion because you're passionate about your kids, and it turns into something bigger. Yeah.
Yeah, that is exactly how it happened. And, this was not the plan. This was not my retirement plan from the police department, was to go into recruiting. In fact, I had a job. I was working that job. I liked it. But you used the right word. It was passion that just kind of took over, and everything else was cast aside.
Right.
Go ahead, Chris. I think you had another question.
If you could explain what happens with a potential recruit, starting with their junior year of high school, especially the significance of September 1st, beginning of the season.
Yeah, so the junior year has always been one that I've considered to be the most important. It's certainly when the most activity begins to occur. Mm-hmm. But a lot needs to happen before that. Hopefully, by the time they reach their junior year, they have a lot of things in place. First thing, they should have a profile, some sort of athletic profile that they can post places and share on social media and other venues that will get them some looks from college coaches. Secondly, they should have a prioritized college list by then. They should know exactly what colleges they're interested in and why, and how they want a plan to try and contact the coaches from those colleges. An updated skills video is another thing to have ready to go by the time they reach, certainly the mid portion of their junior year. The unfortunate part about a video is that they become outdated. These kids, who knew, they grow. They get better, they get bigger, they get faster, they get stronger, and these parents spend a ton of money their freshman year getting a first-rate skills video done, $500-600 or more, and by the time they're through their sophomore year, it's no good. It's outdated.
Wow.
So having an updated skills video is another thing. As soon as you hit your junior year, you can get that out. And then knowing coaching relationships that you want to develop, identify visits that you want to take, and camps and showcases that you want to attend, and having a set of questions that you need answered in order for you to make decisions on your schools.
Okay, that's interesting, because I find it interesting when you go to like a job interview. It's always better to have questions for the person that's interviewing you, because they always ask at the end, "Do you have any questions for us?" And if you're not prepared, you're like, no. So that's interesting that you said that. It's the same thing applies for recruits.
You hit that right on the head. I am a huge advocate of that. I tell student athletes that all the time. Always have questions. Always have questions. And I give them that exact scenario that you just listed. Almost inevitably, if you're sitting in front of a college coach, across the table from a college coach, or at a venue with a college coach, or on the phone with a college coach, almost inevitably the last thing they ask is, "Do you have any questions for me?" And almost always, every student athlete says, "No, I think you covered it." Right. Almost always. Want to stand out? Want to separate yourself? Have some questions. Have some doggone questions ready. Have some pertinent questions ready. And if you're really good, you have some questions that you develop out of what they said to you prior to asking that question. Yeah, absolutely. This recruiting, it's all about separating yourself. It's little advantages that you can stack on top of one another, and pretty soon those little advantages make you the best candidate. Unfortunately, these parents and athletes as well over-concentrate on athletic ability. Athletic ability is great. Of course you have to have it. Of course you have to be an athlete. Of course you have to be, one of the better athletes in your sport to get recruited, especially to a big name school. But if you're in competition, and I always use the scenario, if a college coach walks out to a venue where there's 300 student athletes there, on any given day, any one of them can have a good day or a bad day, athletically speaking.
Yeah.
It's all about what extras do you bring to the table? What kind of leadership do you bring to the table? What kind of work ethic do you bring to the table? Those types of things. If you can convince college coaches that you have those extras, then those are advantages that you can stack one on top of the other.
Right.
Perfect. Yeah, I think in one of your episodes you even mentioned, Chuck, the importance of some kind of leave behind or some kind of extra thing to make you known. and that all starts in the junior year. So thanks for kind of weighing in on that.
Yeah,
it sounds like it starts before the junior year, really.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge advocate of starting, freshman year. Freshman year is when you, and I always say that there's two phases of recruiting, okay? And most people consider the last phase the only phase, and that's the separation phase, where you're trying to separate yourself from your competition and win that spot. The phase that people miss is the first phase, and that's the preparation phase. If you have good preparation, when you cross over your junior year usually into the separation phase, you're well prepared. You have all these advantages. You are well schooled on what questions to ask and what to say, and polished as far as making conversation with a coach and how to write letters and all of those things.
Excellent. Yeah, and I think we'll kind of double back to that topic too on how to stand out. Would you be kind enough, Chuck, to talk to us about social media and how it weighs into when a coach considers whether an athlete will get a scholarship offer? And I was really particularly interested in a comment you made in another episode that said a coach can click, but they can't type.
Yeah, that's sort of the new rule. Social media has kind of caught the NCAA off guard a little bit, as far as how to manage all this and how to make sure that rules aren't being broken and contacts are staying within the rules and that type of thing. And so what they came up with was that they can click, but they can't type until contact can legally be made. And one thing that we didn't really hit on the last question that you folks asked was the September 1st date. That September 1st date of the junior year, that's usually when, for most sports, contact can start. And that's including social media and texts and those sorts of contacts. Okay. So the rule being you can click. Prior to that date, you can click, which means you can like, you can follow, you can do anything you can do with a click. You just cannot type. So direct messaging, texting, even commenting on a post is not allowed. Wow. So that's from that side of social media. Now, as far as social media in general, the role that it plays in getting recruited is becoming bigger and bigger. The more coaches that are familiar with social media and are on social media, the more popular it gets for these coaches to use those platforms to try and get an idea of what kind of character these athletes have. And so really, really important to consider what these athletes are posting on social media, even what they like, who they follow, those types of things are really being looked at. In fact, there's even a segment of businesses that are starting, background type investigators that do that type of thing for coaches on recruits. They just look into their social media. Wow. But yeah, I've been in the office of a college coach with two athletes that he was considering recruiting, and he mentioned to them, he said to them, "You two would not be sitting here if your social media had anything on there that I didn't like. Trust me." And so, I mean, wow. They look at that really, and why not? I mean, that's a perfect way for them to get a quick snapshot of this athlete's character, mm-hmm. right? Without even having to spend any money to do it.
Yeah. Wow, that first impression can go a long way, I bet.
Absolutely. And just the little things, right? A photo of you with somebody behind you that has alcohol in their hands. Just something as what is seemingly innocuous as that can do, right? I mean, I used to have coaches tell me all the time they would watch athletes and their parents interact before and after the game, particularly in the parking lot. they could tell the character of that athlete just by the interaction with their parents,
Right.
walking in and out of venues.
Wow.
So you can imagine what social media, the plethora of information that they can gather character-wise from social media.
Yeah, and it's one of those things like where you might not be holding the alcohol, but if you're liking a picture that has alcohol in it, when someone sees alcohol, so-and-so's name associated with it instantly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard to get out, hard to get out of your mind once it's there.
That's right. That's right. And even it goes as far as to who your friends are. You know, looking at who your friends are and what kind of character they have.
Right.
You know, it really is something to consider.
Yeah, it seems like it's a lot more than just football or basketball or softball. It's a lot more that goes into it.
That's right.
Awesome. I had one thought, and then I'll let Chris ask his next question. Is a lot of coaches, and Florida State was one example of this, will now ban social media of some sort. I think there's other motivations behind it other than stuff getting out, but just because they're so afraid of the danger it can present.
Yes, and that's a whole nother animal. You know, once they get recruited and they're on, you know, a big name team like that. You know, I had a college coach that was presenting to his team. He was making a presentation to his team. I happened to walk in. I had a meeting with him. I was early, and I was listening to him speak to them. And he was actually saying, "Look, you are a Division I college athlete now on the campus of, you know, we've got 20,000 students here. You are a target. You are a target. People either love you and want to spend as much time as they can with you, or they hate you and will do whatever they can to take you down. Wow. And so don't give them any opportunities to do that." And that speaks to that as to why, you know, they ban social media and those types of things, is because these athletes become targets sometimes.
Wow, that's very eye-opening and somewhat unfortunate too. Go ahead,
It
Chris. Whenever you're ready, Chris, you have another question for Chuck.
Yeah. So we talked about standing out, and obviously positive ways to stand out, and obviously negative ways to stand out. Could you share with football fans the importance of following up with a coach after a visit? Like, is there a way to stand out in a positive way? Can you follow up too soon, too eagerly? Like, is there rules, unwritten rules of what to do as far as following up after a visit with a coach?
Well, I would say the first thing is that follow-up is essential. Okay. If you want to separate yourself from other athletes, continue to follow up and don't stop. And unfortunately, a lot of student athletes make that mistake. They have a visit or a contact of any kind, really, and they think, well, that went very well. He seemed to like me. He or she indicated they were going to follow up and do some other things relative to the recruiting process, and then they sort of forget about it and move on to the next thing. And that's the worst thing that you can do, actually. These college coaches are looking for how you're going to handle that contact. Are you just going to let it go? Or are you serious about this, and are you professional enough, mature enough that you're gonna follow up with me and you're gonna continue this process? If you do, then that's a good thing. And so follow up is critical. And I tell all my clients, you absolutely have to follow up with coaches anytime that you've had contact with them, and that even a phone call, even a phone call that you initiated to the coach, if you don't follow that up, then it's like you didn't make the phone call. It really you wasted it, really. So follow up phone calls. If for example, I always tell athletes, if you're going on a visit, for example, you go on a visit, you meet the coach, you see the team, you take the tour, you meet with financial aid, shake the coach's hand on the way out the door, thank you, blah blah blah. You get home, handwritten thank you note is the first thing that you do. handwritten thank you notes mean so much to a coach. I have used that. I have used that and abused that. I have to tell you, I think that I've had so many positive comments from college coaches about a handwritten thank you note. First of all, kids don't write thank yous anymore.
Right.
They don't write anymore.
Yeah.
They don't write anymore, period. And if it's a handwritten thank you note, and I'm not talking about, roots here. I'm talking about a card. I'm talking about, just one of those little thank you cards with a paragraph on there expressing appreciation that the coach spent time with you, how much you enjoyed the campus and the visit and the people and the team and, that type of thing. And, go Gators at the end, and envelope and send it off. That right there is that little advantage that you stack on top of one another, right? And it doesn't end there. You continue the contact. Once you get in with these coaches, you've got to stay in. You have to stay front of mind. If you don't stay front of mind, you'll be to the back of the mind. And so I always say, send update emails. I don't care if it's about a chemistry test that you aced, a vacation that you took to the Bahamas. It really doesn't matter the content. It matters that you regularly stay in contact with that coach once you've built that relationship. If you don't, it's out the window, and it's on to the next player for that coach.
Wow, it's a lot to process.
Yep. And it almost sounds like the athlete controls their own destiny to some extent on how much they choose to be involved with that entire process.
Yeah, and the way my system works is essentially I teach student athletes and their parents about the recruiting process and how to get recruited. And the first thing I tell them when I meet with them is, look, you're going to get out of this what you put into it. Okay. Whatever you put in is what you're going to get out. If you put in a bunch of work and you step outside the box, you get outside your comfort zone and you do some things that, most other athletes aren't doing, you're going to find that you're going to be very successful. But if in between meetings, if you're not doing things, if you're not writing letters, if you're not doing some analysis on colleges to figure out what college is the perfect fit for you, then that's what you're going to get out of it.
Yeah. All right. Wow. All right. Well, I had one more question, Chris, but do you have any thoughts on that before we move on to the next topic?
No, like I said, I'm still trying to process everything because I did not realize there's so much that goes into it. And I can't imagine what a 16, 17-year-old kid who's thinking, most of the time they're thinking about themselves and what's going to happen in the next few hours. And someone's coming in and say, hey, don't think about yourself and think about the next, 4 years of your life. That's got to be a tough thing to handle for some kids, I bet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. And parents get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Kids get overwhelmed. And it's unfortunate because a lot of parents and athletes don't realize how this system works. And so, the kid has some success. They get on a club team. They have some success. They do well in high school, and the parents think, well, at some point, I guess somebody will call us or something will happen. Something will trigger, something to occur, and off we go. And that's unfortunately not the case. This is a very proactive type of a system. You really have to dive in and start early so that you can be prepared when and if things come. And then even then, I always tell these athletes, look, you got to go after what you want. Once you see what you want in a school and an athletic program, you got to go after it with a very aggressive self-marketing campaign. That's what it's all about. It's about marketing now.
Yeah.
We've gotten to the point with recruiting where the norm is for the athlete to pursue the coach, not the other way around.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. I like what you said about the marketing, because that's kind of the impression I was getting as well. We had alluded to some of the different type of visits, Chuck, that an athlete can take. So can you weigh in on the different types of visits there are? I know there's official versus unofficial, and there's different camps and showcases they can attend as well.
Yes. So the two categories, the two real categories of visits are official and unofficial, like you mentioned. So an official visit is really one where you are invited by the coach. They pick up the tab for travel and expenses, hotel, food. They usually host a game. So if it's basketball season, you can go to a basketball game, that type of thing. So that's kind of the difference between an official and unofficial. An unofficial visit it's on your dime. So even though you probably coordinate with a coach, if it's after that September 1st of your junior year, if you coordinate with a coach as far as being able to meet with them or meet with the team, if it's a lower level team, an NAIA team or a JC or one of those, maybe you even get to practice with the team, to work out with the team, that type of thing. But official and unofficial essentially is who pays is essentially the difference between the two, and obviously because the schools pay for official visits, those are very clearly regulated by the NCAA, and so those are the ones that fall under the rules, so to speak, as to how those can occur. So you can only take 5 official visits. So you want to be careful about that. If you're well recruited, then you want to be picky and choosy about where you want to take your official visits. One thought process is, if you're getting recruited from a variety of schools from around the country, you probably want to save those official visits for the ones that are the farthest away,
Right.
that are going to cost the most. But as far as camps and showcases, I think in particular you're talking about camps. Showcases are more along the lines of a private company putting on a showcase where they invite college coaches in.
Okay.
But a camp, every college and every college sport has camps, and they invite players in. Usually for a cost. Usually, it's a fundraiser is what it is, and you can come in and learn from that team and from that coach. It's supposed to be a development type of a situation and not a recruiting type situation, especially now since they have changed the rules. You really can't have what they call a recruiting conversation prior to that September 1st date of the junior year. Prior to before that, you're really supposed to be just developmental and teaching and coaching and that type of thing. Okay. But always good to take a visit like that and to go to a camp if you're really interested in that school. If you really want to show a coach what you've got, then that's one of the ways that you definitely want to do it is take a visit. I've had one player who was being actively recruited by Seton Hall, and she was a West Coast player, and there was some back and forth with the college coach, and one time they got on the phone, and the coach actually said, "Look, in order for me to go to the next, step of the recruiting process, I need to get you out here. You need to come visit. We need to have you here on campus because I'm not gonna take that next step in the recruiting process, not knowing whether you can come this far and really be okay with it."
I see.
So in that instance, a visit or maybe going to the camp that particular sport hosts would be a perfect thing to do to A, show interest, B, prove to the coach that you're okay coming that far and that you like the school and you like the environment and that type of thing, and C, show them that you have the skills necessary to play on that team.
Oh, excellent. Great insight. What were some of your thoughts on that, Chris? I have a few things I'll add in a second.
Yeah, I was kind of curious what the dead period looks like as far as, I know you can't do face to face, but what can you do as far as a recruit to stand out during that period of time?
During a dead period, you can always send, letters, emails, that type of thing. You're just not going to get anything back.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah, a dead period is essentially an unplugging for that college coach. They are unplugged from the whole recruiting process during that particular period.
Can like assistant coaches contact, or is it just strictly no? The kids can. Okay.
Yeah, it's the program. I say coach. The program is unplugged. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and I'm the unofficial to official. I thought I had understood what that was, so I'm glad you clarified, Chuck. Basically, you can travel on your own expense, but an official one is very valued because they're basically kind of catering you, or somewhat of a partial job interview, I guess.
Yeah, if you're getting an official visit, they're clearly very interested in you, and to the point where they want to spend the money on you to come out. And unofficial visits, I love unofficial visits. I think I used to tell players, go visit, go try and coordinate with the coach and that type of thing. It used to be that, if it was an unofficial visit and it was a contact on the campus of the college, then you could have all the contact you wanted with the athletic department and the college coach. Since then, those rules have changed until after that magic date, that September 1st of the junior year. But even if you visit before that, there is some value to that. College coaches value the fact that you would spend your time, money, and an effort to go visit the school. They know you want to go to any school and play. They get that. Why do you want to come to my school? And are you really serious about it? And if you've taken the time and used your own money to go visit the school, even though the rule said you couldn't make contact with the coach or the athletic department, but you went through and took a visit and talked to financial and, looked into the major and, maybe sat in on a class, that type of thing, that means a lot to them. That's another little advantage that you can stack on top of the others. Hey, I went to visit your school, that it's going to mean a lot to them.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. Well, great insight, Chuck. I think Chris had one last question for you.
Yeah, I was just kind of curious what your day-to-day kind of looks like. I know you don't have a quote-unquote normal job where you clock in 9 to 5 at the factory. So can you just kind of a little synopsis of what your day looks like typically?
Yeah, I am usually in the office about 9 a.m. and I'm reading emails and getting messages and returning messages and that type of thing. Most of the time I save my appointments for later in the day. I conduct coaching sessions over the internet for kids that are not close to me. And so I usually save those for later in the day because that's usually after practice, after their school, after that type of thing. It's the only time they're available. And so many times in the afternoon and in the evening, that's where you can find me, is in front of the computer in coaching sessions with these athletes.
So it's like an all-day thing for you?
Sometimes. Yeah, sometimes. I definitely carve out some time for me, and having my own business, I certainly afford me the ability to travel and go see my college aged daughters as well.
Okay. So. Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show today, Chuck. I know you have we mentioned Play Up Athletics. How can fans reach out to you if they have any further questions about recruiting, or if someone is looking to maybe set up a service? Would you just let our fans know how they can contact you?
Yeah, absolutely. first of all, you can always reach me in the office. You can leave a message for me if I'm not here, and that's 844-4PLAY-UP. It's a toll-free number, 844-4PLAY-UP. I'm on the internet, playupathletics.com, and it's got all my products and services on there, as well as a quick bio on me. But we've got a product called the Athletic Edge that is our base product, our recruitment product, and so we sell that to folks that want to kind of do it themselves. It's a do-it-yourself type of program. They buy it, they download it off the internet, and it takes them, like I said, from point A to point Z through the recruiting process and gives them resources and things that they need. We also have what we call a membership, Athletic Edge membership, which that also gives you a recruiting coach. And those are the meetings that I use that I mentioned earlier. And you're assigned a recruiting coach. Currently, we have myself and another recruiting coach where we split the athletes, and we take you through the program ourselves. So it's usually once a month meetings over the internet. And so that's what I do with Play Up Athletics. I also mentioned you mentioned earlier the Recruiting Blueprint podcast that I put out. That's free. It's out there on your favorite podcasting platform, listing platform. Mm-hmm. So we try and put out information on that as well. So make sure you take a listen to that. There's episode number 4 is specifically about the rules. I know we started out our conversation about the rules, right. But episode number 4 will tell you everything you want to know about the rules and then some.
Wow. Well, thank you so much. I know that you started this as we were circling back to passion again. This was something that you were passionate about, and you saw a lot of people take the wrong directions. And just like everything else in life, all three of us really have learned from our mistakes, and you wanted to put a product out there that certainly helps parents. So I want to thank you for that, and also for taking time today. Chris, did you have any other final thoughts or questions for Chuck today?
No, I really appreciate you taking your time, and I'm glad there's people like you out there helping kids and parents who can be clueless or can get themselves into trouble or hurt themselves or their kids' future. So I'm glad that there's people like you and programs like that out there.
Well, thank you for having me on, and it's been my pleasure to share what I know with your listeners. And if anything ever comes up where you have some questions or anything, I'd be glad to come back and discuss with you whatever recruiting topic has come up that you need to talk about.
All right.
Okay, awesome, man.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chuck. For the fans, thank you so much for listening. We want to throw out there how fans can reach us as well, and that's something that Chris knows everything about. So, Chris, how can fans reach out to us if they have questions for Chuck or about the content we've heard today?
Absolutely. Start off, just go to FloridaFocusPodcast.com, and right there you'll find all the many things you need, like links to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, our email, Instagram, and our Patreon account. So anything you need, start off with FloridaFocusPodcast.com. All
right. Well, thank you so much for listening today. 5-star rating on iTunes or whatever directory you're in, and just take a sentence or two to let us know how we're doing. This is Brandon saying, go Noles.
Go Gators.